So, good afternoon. Hello, how are you? It is Butterfly, and I'm so glad you came by. Thank you for coming by to visit. So, what are we going to do today? Normally on a Saturday at 4 o'clock, the last month or so, I've been kind of experimenting with the idea of meditation, something that I wanted to do for a long time. Well, I've been meditating for decades, but I mean on my channel. What I found is that I probably like it more than other people. So I like the time, 4 o'clock on Saturday, and I think perhaps we'll try something else today. So we're just going to do an informal crafting kind of session. Now, the challenge for me is I'm going to put down the laptop so that you can see what I'm doing, and then I'll have a hard time kind of looking underneath to see who's actually here. So, because I have one device, and that's my laptop. So I don't have like a second device that I can kind of look at the same time. So let's just put this down. I thought perhaps I'd show you here. And as you come into chat, I will, hopefully see you and we can talk a little while. So these are some runes that I'm doing, but I also have in a little bit some of the pages that I've been working with in my journal that I want to kind of work on. So we'll see who shows up. Quite possibly I'll just be doing this on my own, and that's cool too. It would not be the first time. I like my company, and so it works pretty well. Here we go. I had done these runes with clay, and they were kind of kept in my basement with a sort of very special kind of a crafting area that I had set up for myself last year. And my basement tends to be very cold. So during the winter, and this winter is very long, I didn't go downstairs to do much of anything. So along with the cold, the last 8 months or so, these runes ended up staying downstairs. So they're an unfinished product, an unfinished project that I started. They are just clay, just kind of like a crafting clay that you'd use. And I took a cookie cutter, a very round cookie cutter, and I created circles. I flattened the clay first, and then I, form them into circles and soften the edges and that sort of thing. I let them dry, and then I went and I painted them a chocolate brown. But I'm not really satisfied with the chocolate brown color, and I'm also not satisfied with the way it feels. It's very chalky feeling. It's an acrylic paint, and I'm just not into it. So given that runes are the kind of thing that you really sort of manipulate a lot, you handle a lot with your hands, I want it to be something very soft. So I'm painting them again with a color I prefer, and that's a gold. So I can see that as it dries, it gets to be, it almost looks like gold coins now. I didn't really anticipate that. I didn't think about that. But anyways, they look like kind of gold coins. And then I'm going to paint the rune sort of symbols on top. So we're going to do that a little bit later. I just want to kind of get the base coat on first, because after this sort of base coat, I'm going to go on to working on my craft pages, on my journal pages. And hopefully it will be a bit of a discussion with people that come in. So I'm keeping my eye out to see if anybody stops in. Yeah. So here we go. You don't really need to have much of a thick coat either. Just, just like that. And then, of course, I have the wet wipes very close by because I don't want to have to kind of get up and wash my hands. Now, runes, of course, we know are traditionally for divination. And divination can be fun. I like it in a lot of ways, but I don't tend to do it a lot for myself. And I don't really tend to do it a lot for other people. I like watching other people when they do it. I think they're probably better at it than I am. I am more focused on the here and now than on, predicting my future, predicting the future of somebody else. Sometimes, though, I think you can get messages. You can get, you sort of focus in on that sense of intuition that we don't really know where that message is coming from. But you just kind of, I was just thinking of you, and that person calls within a minute, or you were just thinking about somebody and you have no really any reason to kind of think about them otherwise, and they just kind of turn the corner and they're right there in your face and you hadn't seen them in years. So that's the kind of foresight that, in divination that really kind of I see a lot of, but for me, it's very infrequent and I can't kind of rely on it. So, oh, hello, Starlight. First time making it to a live. Well, hello. Hi, nice to see you. Good. So I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to be a little bit challenged trying to read the comments at the same time because I have to lower the, I'm just going to put this up for a second. Hi. I have to lower the laptop so that I can show you what I'm doing. Unless I wonder if I can do it this way just for now. And paint up in the air. But I think you'd probably rather see the work that I'm doing than, my face. Definitely, I'm going to have to bring it back down when I'm doing some of the crafting pages, like the journal pages I have. I'm going to show you. Just want to get a base coat on these. I have some discussion topics that I'd like to, see if you have some input for me on just a whole lot of different things. So this could be kind of interesting. On Saturdays, normally what I was doing is meditation at 4 o'clock, but I found that there wasn't really a lot of interest or, we all kind of have our own schedules for meditation. We don't necessarily want to kind of, do it on a live kind of thing. I had really hoped that was going to turn out pretty well, but I think what I might do very soon, like not today, but next week or the week ahead, is to do some like a spell online during a live so that you can see, me doing something. And I think spellcraft is a really nice thing to sort of do in numbers. So anyways, what I'm doing here is I'm just, I'm going to put this back down. I'm painting these. And as soon as this is done, I'm going to go on to the paperwork. So do you like journaling? Do you like to do work in your Grimoire, in your Book of Shadows, in your journal? I call mine a journal. So I'm just kind of looking to see if there's any let's see. If you like to journal, you might see a little bit of what I'm doing here. As soon as I'm done this, dun, 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 and voila, all done. Okay, so the one side of these things will dry, and then we're going to come back to it in a couple of minutes. All right, let's move on to the next thing that I have. So you see there, we got some what looks like gold coins, but they're actually going to be, they're just clay, and they're going to be, I'm going to paint the rune sort of symbols on them. And you're going to help me. You're going to help me do that, because what we're going to do is I'm going to be painting the symbol, and perhaps you can tell me what you know about each rune, because that could be sort of like a nice point of reference for people to kind of go back to. This here is a page I worked on this week. So I'll just let you see this page here. Essentially, I had shown it. It's can you see that, or is this light too bright? Let me see here. Is that better? I'm not sure. So basically, it's a page that I had collected and put some writing. We did some workings on it. It talks about self-esteem and the psychology of the school-age child from 7 to 13. I got it from this, which is Moura's Grimoire for the Green Witch. And I really like the way that she describes things. So I featured that on just making this page. Are you still with me, Starlight? I featured this week on my channel, but I didn't put a title on there. And I've also been talking about these wrapping papers, these very thin papers, and how to use them in making pages in your journal. So I wanted to show you how I do that, because apparently I wasn't, really clear on it. So I want to show you the light back on here and put this back down. And then, so I have an assortment of paintbrushes here. I think I'm going to take this one. Unless I take this one here. This is usually the one I take for my paint. It's flat. It's kind of square looking. And then in my paint dish beside me here, I put just a little bit of glue. Sometimes I'll put like a lot of glue because I'll be working for a long time. Now what I found with this is a different kind of a paper, this one here that I used. This one here, the reason why I want to show it is because of the way that it works. This is basically this wrapping paper that you would put in for gifts. It comes like this. I was using trace paper for this. And what I find is when I make, pretty backgrounds, like, that are very dark and detailed, I can't really see through it when I glue paper on top, and I kind of would like to. So what I was doing is I was painting like this very thin paper on top, but then sometimes it's really hard to see the writing if you paint over top. So that's why I'm just going to give you a bit of a clarification on what I do. So here's the thing. You take the glue on the paintbrush and you put it on your surface, and you could always kind of dip your paintbrush into the water as well, just a little bit, so that it spreads easier, because some glues are thicker than others. And then I take this paper and I just stick it on. You can take a different paintbrush as well, just to get the roller end of it so that it's dry and I'm not getting like wet stuff all over my page. And just roll it from the center outward and leave it. And that's it. And that's the end result right there. That is what I find works the best. The reason being is that if I do any more than that, if I take the wet paintbrush and I paint over top, a couple of things can happen. If it's pen, the paper becomes so translucent that you can't read through it to read the writing. And the other thing is that if you use stamps like this, see, I use little letter stamps like that to make the writing sometimes. And of course, if you paint over top with water or glue, then it'll smear the ink. So just what I showed you, that's how you do it. And then you end up with this. And when it dries, it's white enough so that you can see the images through it. And it's dry enough so that it'll stick. You don't have any water bubbles or air bubbles in there. It's just, it works the best, I find. Okay, so the other side here is my book tends to be pretty interactive, so there's a lot of things to touch, although I don't want anybody touching my stuff. so I have to find ways to deal with myself. Oh, good, you're still here. I'm so glad. Okay, so the thing is I put bark on here. Now, if you can see, the bark is layered, right? Show it to you this side. Here. So you can imagine, I guess, layers and layers and layers of bark. They're very paper-like. So what I did this morning is I kind of glued some of the layers down, because as I put them in their plastic sleeve, they're not going to, at the end of it all, it's not going to be in a plastic sleeve. It's going to be in a grimoire without plastic sleeves. But right now they are. And when people put them in the plastic sleeves, what happens is it gets in and it splits up the bark. It could really split it. So I glued it all down. Now, how am I going to keep it protected? So again, I'm using this. And by the way, there's a smooth side and there's a rough side. And I suggest that you write with your pen, if you're using a pen or whatever you're using, on the rough side, because the glossy side does not write as well, just by experience. Okay, so I don't know that I really want to have straight edges. I kind of like to have things a little bit more organic looking. So I'm going to... Do you ever do one of these lives where you just kind of wonder, like, you know, if you're kind of doing something that people enjoy? So if you can, you know, let me know with part of your discussion how, you know, what you're thinking. I'd love to hear. So there you go. So this is kind of, this got shorter. I thought I had measured it out. Oh, wait a second. Maybe this is the one I measured out. I knew I came a little bit more prepared than that. Okay, so this is the one I measured out. I'm going to cut this kind of like down this way. So is this Starlight? How do you do you use runes? Let's start there. Do you use runes at all? And if you don't use runes, do you like to use your journal? And if you like to use your journal, how do you use it? So there's a ton of things that I would like to know, because it's just you and me for right now, and I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. So here we are. I think that's going to work. Okay, it's a little longer than I would like, but that's okay because it's going to help to hold it down. And we're talking about something that ideally would last a few years. So let me see what you got going here. Sadly, I have to get going and absolutely replay this later when I get back. Take care, butterfly. Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So I understand. What we're going to do, there you go. And I'm going to put, now I'd love to keep this just as it is, but I know that it won't stay this way, because already these little bits here are flaking and they're really not, like, you know, they're not going to last. They're just not going to last. So I'm going to put this on here like this. And of course I have newspaper underneath, and I'm working on my dining room table. My dining room table spends more time with me doing, you know, arts, craft, beadwork, painting, gluing, stenciling, journaling, reading. I spend more time doing that than serving food. Okay, so here I'm taking a dry brush, okay? The reason being is that, well, actually on this, because there's no writing on the paper or under the paper to be read, I could actually be quite safe in using a wet brush, but I'm not going to. And organically, this kind of is very similar to the bark itself because it's paper. So I'm just going to kind of rub that on. Now, see, it's already kind of ripping over here. So I'm just going to kind of leave it be. And on this side here, this is the bit that I'm going to add some glue to. And down here, always have some water close by. And that way you see the print underneath, but it's also sort of held into place. And when it dries, it'll probably be a little bit better, I hope. Right now it kind of looks like a mummified piece of bark, but when it dries, I anticipate it'll be better. I'll put some water on this part here because I don't want. So what I'm aiming for is just so that it's covered so that it protects the bark from splitting. And there you go. All right. Here. Okay. So that is one technique. I'm just going to leave that there to dry. Now I did something a little bit similar over here. I'm going to show you this. I did this a little bit earlier. It is all completely dry, but this is with maple leaves. And I took a piece of this wrapping paper and I put it over the entire surface. And the reason why also is because, as with many things that are from nature like this, that are very paper-like, what happens is I glue them down. The glue ends up lifting over time, and all of the pretty edges of the leaf end up breaking off. You see here, here's a piece of leaf that was breaking off. And I've done enough of these pages to know that when you get bits of leaf like this that break off, you know, when I'm going out into nature, I want to find something that is whole, that is pretty. And then I glue it into my book, and then over time it breaks. And so I just end up with pages full of like decorative broken leaves, which is not what I was aiming for. So by putting a protective kind of a covering over it like this, it does change the look of it because it has like a sheet of paper over top, but at the same time, when I put other kind of cards with writing and whatever over top, because with you know, with journaling, I end up layering a lot of things, so it doesn't look so bad. Here's another one I'll show you. This is something else that I got from the Green Witch Grimoire here from Moura. And at least I think this is where it comes from. And it's called the Witch's Sigil Wheel. So again, I put these letters using this that paper, and I put it down just as like I showed you. And that's why I know that when you roll it over top and don't paint over top, that it turns out like this when it's dry. So I like it. This is the best. This here, I had a leaf that I had collected, and I just left it there for the longest of time, not knowing how I was going to finish the page. But when I saw this sigil wheel, I knew that it had to go right here. So what I did is I traced the sigil wheel. I wonder if I can find it here. I traced it right from the book. Oh, here it is. So if you have this book, it's here on page 195. Okay, so that's how you can see it a little clearer. And what you do with it, and I have the explanation down here written over top of the leaf. So what you do with it is you put a page over top. So if you can imagine putting a page over top, a bigger one than this actually, and then you can see the letters underneath. Now, let's just say your spell is a money spell. M-O-N-E-Y. So that is your key word. So what you do is you take a sheet of paper that you can see the letters underneath that covers the whole wheel, and then you take your pen and you find the letters. There's an M. So let's imagine a page over top, and you go from M to O. I can't spell it upside down. N, and then you trace to E, and then to your Y, and then you go back to your M, and you always circle your first letter. So then you have not quite a star shape, but you have what is called a sigil. So that's just another way of making a sigil. So you would have like M-O-N-E-Y, and then you go back to your M. Then you take your sheet of paper that you've traced, you take it off, and now you have your sigil so that you can use it for your spell. You see? So that is a really cool thing. So this page is now not only, you know, does not only just have the information and the wheel, but it's actually a tool. It's kind of like yeah, it's a tool. So you can take it out with you in your travel altar or whatever and kind of work with it, or you just work with it right at your altar. And so again here, down below, just to show you from experience what I've been experimenting with so you can learn from my mistakes, this page, I did take the wet brush and go over the writing afterwards to put it down. So you see how translucent the page is, but you also see that it ripped here next to the stem of the page because this is a very, very friable page. So that's why I would say for something like this, just use your dry, soft brush and go over top, just once. So there's some artsy ideas for you, if you like. And what do I have on the other side? Oh, it's pretty unfinished. Okay. Then I had another idea here. This is just completing another one of my is anybody here? Looks like, and I saw that there's somebody else who has a live at this time as well. So, like everybody kind of we're a pretty tight knit community. So, how do I want to? This is a rune cleansing spell. That's what this is. Again, I took this one from the Green Witch and Moura book. So these are the materials that I need. I wrote those down. And I kind of measured it out a bit so that I knew the width of the page and what I would need. I printed out the words on the rice paper or the wrapping paper so that I know beforehand how things are going to be laid out. I want to be prepared for this video. So I want the directions, the spell casting itself, the words to be up on top. I don't want them to be down on the bottom. This picture, oh, I don't want to hide this. It says front cover picture, Secret Garden. So it's called Secret Garden, and this is an original painting, original painted with the mouth by Christophe Maillard. So I just want to give him credit for having made the painting itself. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So these are the kind of a lot of these paintings that I have are made by artists who paint with their feet. They paint with because they they've just had to relearn when they no longer can use their hands. So I'm going to find some way of gluing this. I didn't really kind of make space for this bit in my art, but I'm kind of wanting to have it there somehow, and I don't know how. So it's going to be a tight fit. This here, let's see what we can do here. Any ideas? We'll put, I guess I will have to put this on the top. I'll have to put this on the top so that this will fit down here. I wanted to have this kind of writing on the top so that I wouldn't have to refer to it. But then if I put it on the top, then I can't have the title on the top. It's just not working the way I want it to. So that's what I'm going to do is the materials are here. And that'll be there. Rune cleansing spell will be here. The picture will be on the side. Now ideally what I want is to kind of have like to be able to read it on top. It doesn't really seem to be working. Do you kind of like it on top? I don't know. There's no one here. Hello. Do you know, it's kind of like why would I bother making a live when no one's here? And frankly, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. Well, it does in that I like it when people come. That's for sure. But at the same time, people might watch this a little bit later. So no, I really want to see the painting. I don't want that there. So that's the way that's going to go. And then this, I don't know where this can go. I'm really at a bit of a loss. I might have to squish this and put this here. Yeah, I'll put it on the side here. That's what I'll do. Okay, so now I have a bit of a plan and a layout. And I think if I switch this to that side and this to this side, then I'll have enough room here to put this. So I don't have to turn my head to actually look at it. All right. So last night I saw a movie on Netflix. It was called Lucy. I don't know if anybody's seen Lucy. It's with Morgan Freeman and a newer actress. And I really liked it. There's a bit of a controversial thing. And Freeman's character did say in the very beginning, the thing that he's talking about, which is humans use 10% of their brain and if only they could use more, was just a theory. That's all it was. It's just hypothesis. And so that's the one thing in the movie that I clearly disagree with. And I disagree with it not just because I have an opinion, but because I was taught by, when I studied psychology, I studied with Dr. Persinger. And that was one thing that he spoke about. And he said that clearly you spend all this time, in your initial course in brain and behavior learning what each part of the brain, does, where the neurons that are in each part of the brain, how they group and they make nuclei and they make different areas that are responsible for the information that's stored that helps you to kind of do all the things you do as a human, right? So when you learn all the different areas of your brain, it becomes rather kind of ridiculous to sort of say, is this upside down? No, this is the way it goes. It becomes kind of ridiculous to say that you only use 10% of your brain because, in fact, you use all of it. So I don't know why that myth or that fallacy or that legend ever started, but it did. It kind of is one of those things that's become part of the kind of the pop culture that makes no sense. So we do use 100% of our brain unless there's some kind of brain damage. Then you wouldn't be using that part of your brain anymore. But it's kind of like your heart or your liver. Like, why would you say that you're using only 10% of your liver, right? Unless some of it's damaged, in which case then you're using 10% of your liver. Anyway, so this, or whatever percentage of your liver. So, so this movie, Lucy, if you can just kind of get around that sort of fallacy, that premise that sort of follows through the entire movie. The actual movie itself has a lot of really great information and a lot of really take-home messages that I really liked it a lot. The whole bit about it becomes very metaphysical, and so the main character sort of takes this drug, and then as the movie progresses, she ends up using more and more of the capacity, of the potential of her brain power. And eventually she ends up being a source of energy that is everywhere because her physical body disintegrates. So, rune cleansing spell. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I am doing this in order. So yeah, I really like that movie. That was well done and very cool. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you've seen it, or if you watch it, come back and let me know how you like it. I'd love to read, you know, different opinions about it. Anything with Morgan Freeman, I knew it was going to be a good thing. And after I saw how violent the beginning of the movie was, I would normally just turn it right off. But only because Morgan Freeman was in there, and I know that he does intelligent movies, I stuck through it. And I'm glad I did. So this little sheet here tells you when to perform the spell, or ideally, and what you'll need. Now, in the rhyming here, in the phrasing, she does mention that you need salt, but she doesn't put it in the ingredients. So I added it myself. Yeah. And now I'm just gonna, I might just end up fussing with it after. Sometimes I end up fussing over my bits and pieces quite a bit. So this spell casting, I'll read it to you. It says, take a candle and incense and walk around the interior of the room. So this is, I really struggle with wanting to clean my house. I tend to kind of leave things where I use them and come back to them and use them afterwards. Hello, Pepper Jackie. I'm so glad. So I'm just kind of doing some crafting here, and I'm not sure if you're going to be interested in that. But I just kind of wanted to do something a little bit more relaxed today, and hopefully have a bit of discussion on things. And I'm also going to be doing some runes later. Right now I have my runes. I had done one layer of like a background layer on them, and they're drying. And I'm going to finish the rest of them as soon as I'm done these pages here. So if you stick around for that, this is just going to be a totally an artsy sort of have a cup of tea with me and discuss as though we're on a Saturday afternoon somewhere in a very artsy tea shop. Is that okay with you, Pepper? I'll just put it this way, and that way you can see the tray, and you can also see, and I can also see your comments too. So I will read this to you. This is a rune cleansing spell. And I find that if I incorporate spell casting with the cleaning of my house, then I'm more likely to do it. Because I don't really like cleaning. I try and convince myself that I like cleaning in an attempt to get myself to do it more. But the reverse psychology with it just doesn't work with me. It's like, no, I really don't like doing the damn cleaning. I just don't. So if I like, you know, tidy things up, but I do it because I try and convince myself stuff like, you know, cleanliness is close to godliness, and I use incense to sort of do things in the room afterwards. You hate cleaning too? Oh my God, it just kills me. So, I mean, I like it once it's done, but oh crap, like it just never seems to get done because, you know, you do one room and there's like other rooms to do. So this is where it gets kind of risky for me because I start to like play around with it. And then it becomes kind of translucent. Like this paper becomes translucent, and then, but this is a lighter background. So I think having the glue on top is not going to be bad because the colors are very light on the bottom, and I doubled the ink, like I went over it twice so that the writing itself is dark and the background is light, and I think it turns out better. Here, let me show you. I don't know if you can see that well. Is the lighting okay? So you see that? The rhyme itself is so pretty, and I can see doing it often. So it tells you actually have a tray. I'm just going to put this in the bottle of water there. It says to have a tray to carry the items, and your items are 1 sprig of heather. I can see myself using like something else, something organic, but I mean, what the hell is heather and where do I get it? Like 8 months out of the year, we're in snow here. So like there's going to be a whole lot of adjusting, you know? So I think that instead of using heather, I may use, this might freak people out, but I have stuff like this around. But you know this what do you call this string? This there's a name for this kind of twine. It's called whatever the hell. This string, it's natural, and I have like a cotton string as well, like cotton wool. So I'm going to take that, wrap it around a number of times, and put it at the end of a stick. Tie it to the end of a stick, so it's kind of like a broom. You know what I mean? Like you take this, and you tie natural fibers to the end of it. That will be what I use to asperge. Asperging, it, like when you take like a branch of heather and you use it to flick the water. Yeah, like that. So in a pinch, I will use what I have. So they tell you to use a sprig of heather for that. And then you have 1 lit candle on your tray in a holder and 1 lit frankincense in a holder, which will likely for me be frankincense. I do have some, but it could easily be like Naj Champa, which is my absolute favorite, or whatever the heck else that I have. The bowl of blessed water and salt in the water. And I added the salt in the water myself, not because Moura put it in her thing, but because she put it in her in the spell casting itself. So this is what you're supposed to do. You take the candle and the incense and you walk around the interior of the room. So this is something I would do like probably after I'm done cleaning. It would be kind of like my reward for having done the job. And you say, this is what you say, this is the spell. By fire and flame, by smoke and scent, I drive from this room all chaos and dissent. Then what you do is you asperge, you take that heather and you dip it in the water and you sprinkle it. And using the sprig and the water, sprinkling baseboards and walls and cornices and floor, it says, and you say, by the water and the salt, by herb and flower, peace and contentment return in this hour. So then you take the tray outside and you say, follow the light, follow the scent, into the earth and into the air. Energies gathered here, I now vent. So you vent them, you get them outside and you leave them. I could tell, like, yeah, if you want to kind of take the water and toss it outside, sounds great. But then it says, blow out the candles, bury the incense, which you can't bury anything here with ice and snow most of the year. So I have a couple of plants actually inside the house, but one in particular where I bury things. My poor plant. Anyways, and then I'll put like when I burn like sage or whatever, that ends up going in the plant, in the dirt. And then you lay the sprig over this and you pour out the water on top and you bury the candle, or you send it to the landfill, which means you toss it in the garbage. So I don't know. I'm not into these one-use candles unless you're using like, birthday candles or whatever. I reuse my candles. At the very most, what I might do is have like I have a candle that's for banishing. So this would be like a banishing, I would say. And then I would have another candle for the other side. Is not a banishing. It's more like you're bringing in, right? So more of an invoking, or you're attracting. So I'd have a candle of each, and I would just keep those candles because I can't afford to be tossing candles every time I do a room, right? It's just not part of the budget. The budget just does not stretch like that, my dear. So let's see what you got here. It's pretty wide. Oh, the besom. Yeah, B-E-S-O-M. That's besom. I'm more and more, I'm using words that I know. So like, instead of using besom, I'll use a word that I know, like broom. Broom's my word. That's my language. And I'm from Canada, and I've always been in Canada. So, I use the word broom, and that's what I do. And then, what else was I going to say? Hello, how are you? So yeah, Does anybody else have a hard time with cleaning? Like, is there anything we can do? You know, if I want to sort of incorporate ritual with cleaning, I think I'm more likely to do it. I think. So this is me being like really retentive. I want to kind of credit the author, the painter, with the credit. So I want to put that on the page. I'm not easily finding a place for it. And I also want to credit Moura. I'm like, who the heck is going to be like correcting my page? It's not like anybody's going to be looking to see where the sources are or the bibliography. But the thing is that sometimes when I look at spells, I want to like go and see where the author was or where the heck I got it. So I do often put like the source. Like, do you guys, when you're doing your journaling, do you actually write down sources, like the source of where you got your information so that you can go back and reference it later? Or is that just me? Like, am I just being a total dink? I have cleaning to do now. Oh, I know, I hate it. So you know what? Just take me along with you. Whatever cleaning you're doing, we can sit here and we can talk like we're on the phone, baby. I will sit here and I will do, I will paint while you clean. How's that? Is that a good deal? And then one day I'll go on your channel while I'm cleaning. No. And that way we can live vicariously through the channels and get some motivation. Here we go. Now that's on there. I still don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to trim it a little bit more. So, is there, like, do you have any ideas for cleaning with ritual? Because I think, you know, back in the day, people used what they had. And I think the broom was a very typical thing. Like, even the cauldron. That was just like taking a pot out of your cupboard. That was their cauldron. Because that's what made sense to them. That's what they used. That's why with my cauldron, I don't really use a cauldron that's, you know, those tiny cauldrons that you buy and you burn something on your altar or your desk or wherever. My cauldron is first of all, I'm storing it in my basement because that's sometimes where I do some work. Do I really want this here? I really don't. I don't like it. I'll put it here. That's where I want it, right here. And it's actually a piece of camping equipment. It's called a Dutch oven. And it's like this big, you know, and it's this tall. And it has the three legs on it, you know, like the three feet on the bottom. And I got it right out of Canadian Tire. It's like a big box store here in Canada. And it's called Dutch Oven, I believe. And you look at it in the camping equipment section of the store. And so, because those small ones for cast iron, you're looking at like $50 to $100 when you buy it online. And around where I live, you're not going to get that in a store unless you're paying through the nose for it. So I just thought, for the money, I'm going to go and get myself something that I can use that has multiple purposes. So there's the kind of the finished product for my room cleaning spell. Is your mom's? Well, then use it, and that way it's like I don't know. I mean, it's good to have tools that are pretty, but for me, the only reason why I really enjoy witchcraft, well, there's a lot of reasons why I enjoy witchcraft, but it's because it's practical. You know, when we say practical magic, that hits home for me. If I use something, I got like some hair in here, or fur or fuzz or something. Anyways, for me, the practical magic is I use the herbs that I have. Like when I'm looking at a spell and it has like 20 different herbs, I don't think that I really want to be using the 20 different herbs in the spell. I will take the one or the two that are in my cupboard, and I probably have at any time no less than at least 50 different kind of herbs in my cupboards, on my shelves, in my kitchen. I try and keep everything in my kitchen. I used to kind of have other little stashes for magic and for prayer and for incense and that sort of stuff. But now I just try and keep everything in one room. I can't even just keep it in one place. So I use what I have, and that's the thing for me, is it's got to be practical. So this is transference magic. This page here. What flavor tea am I drinking? This one, I think it's called, the name brand is called Red Label. I know it's a loose leaf tea. I had it here in my tea ball, and the tea ball kind of goes on the bottom of my teapot. For me, 4 o'clock is tea time. But I'm not only having tea time at 4 o'clock. It's just that 4 o'clock, there's a part of me that has always, for years and years, has always liked that 4 o'clock tea time. I was brought up in a family with tea. Hey, Kate. Oh, are you crafting too, Kate? Anyways, so I was always brought up with tea in my family of origin. If there was always a teapot on the table, and usually a card game going, and usually mom and some helpers were in the kitchen either cleaning the last meal or preparing the next meal. Everything was around the kitchen and dining room, and that was home. It was always tea either being made or tea being drank, and then somebody boiled the water. You know, I remember when I was a kid, we used to yell up the stairs, because it was a big house. It was a big house back then. My parents had 7 kids, so we used to yell upstairs, "Water's boiling!" It was my job to kind of unplug the kettle, and then somebody would come and finish making the tea, because there was always something going. So okay, so there's that. And then there was one of my very closest friends, who's still a friend of mine now. I've known her since I was about 3 or 4, and with her, I'd stop by her place after school quite often, and we'd have 4 o'clock tea time after school, and she'd always like have the little foods and stuff, and we'd have a cup of tea, and and sit around the kitchen over there. So those kind of things, yeah, sweet memories for sure. So for me, tea is kind of like an organic thing that, and I grew up with those. You can call them herbs. They've been processed, those herbs, but they're herbs, right? And now when it's summer, I have plenty of different kinds of herbs and prevalence of mint that grows out there. And that becomes the herbs that I put in tea. And I infuse that with water and stuff too. So all of that, why did I go into that? Why did I go into that? Crafting? I don't know. What was I talking about? I'll have to go back and listen to my video to see why my family of origin and drinking tea. So yeah, I think this is called Red Label. And 4 o'clock, the whole 4 o'clock bit, that's the reason why, is because, so on Saturdays at 4 o'clock, what I've been doing recently on my channel is meditation, but I don't really find that the attendance is that huge. So I do meditation on my own, and I started doing something different this week. Like last week I couldn't be here. I made an announcement. I said, I had a workshop to go to, and that was a really cool workshop. I could talk to you about that. So this week I decided to do something different. So if crafting with me is something that you'd like to do, I'm up for it. So I've been here for about an hour, and I still have some other things that I want to end up doing. So if you're coming to keep me company, and 4 o'clock, I know, Kate, you're kind of on the other side. So it's not 4 o'clock for you. It's probably more like 9 or something. No, wait, 4 o'clock. So now it's almost 5. So you're probably about 10 minutes to 10 o'clock now, Kate. So it's quite late for you, which is why I like this time for me, because, people over there can still attend. It's not too late. So I'm going to be here every week doing something. And you're just going to have to tell me what it is that you like. So that 9 p.m. Okay. 9 p.m. Is it almost 9 or almost 10 over there? It must be like 9:53. Anyway, whatever. I'd like to think that you're exactly 5 minutes or 5 hours difference, but I'm really not an expert on the world clocks, so I don't know. Oh, I remember what it was that I had started, is that there's a part of me, yeah, okay, so you're 4 hours difference, that's different, okay. there's a part of me that's very connected to England, but only in my mind. I mean, I don't know of any relatives that come from there, but I've always been attracted to everything England. Like, I love the BBC TV shows. I love, like, Downton Abbey. I love, I've always loved those haunted sort of old manor stories. They do the best period movies, the best period shows. You can, everything is authentic. You can tell. And when you look at the vintage stuff that I have in my house, um, that's my thing. I don't know. People would automatically kind of go and say, okay, well, maybe that's because you have some sort of a past life experience. And maybe that's true, but I don't know. Theoretically, I have many past lives, which are all happening concurrently at the same time. So when you're talking metaphysics, I have no idea where I'm going with it. So Pepper Jackie, almost 4 o'clock there, so almost 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Right. So this is something that I did. So thanks for that, Pepper. So this is something that I did earlier. I think it was last week. And so I've been experimenting with this paper. This is where when you're painting over top and it becomes very translucent and you can't barely see the writing through it. But the 3 sheets of paper that I have, I probably will end up redoing this page somehow because I'm somewhat dissatisfied with it, but I love gold so much that I kind of don't want to mess it up. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with this. So it says types of magic. And so I have 3 blurbs: sympathetic magic, this is that. And I got this information, of course, because this week I've been working with this book by Moura quite heavily. I really enjoy this Green Witch book that she has. So this when I was listening to HearthWitch, she had something that actually she was kind of like talking about it, sort of like she had some knowledge on it. For me, I don't really, before the video that she made, I didn't really differentiate much between the book shadows and the grimoire. I didn't know any difference, really. The Book of Shadows became kind of popular with that era of Charmed, and the series of Charmed. But she says that a grimoire is basically like this. It's a printed text that can be used as a reference for everyone. So when you go to the store and you get it, this is a reference for everyone. I would anticipate that before the machine industry, people would be printing up their printed texts that were kind of used by everyone. So the common book that everybody referenced, that would be a grimoire. So that's why this is correctly stated, a grimoire. But your Book of Shadows is the thing that you take and you use, and you, of course, here I am rewriting stuff from the grimoire. So like, whatever, it's going to be my book of reference so that I have all of the things from the different books that I want in my book. But I call my book a journal because I work on it daily. And so it's my journal. It's my day-to-day work. Anyways, so your collection of your writings is apparently, that is what you would call your Book of Shadows. And so I think for the most part, most people will put their personal as well as whatever references they have from elsewhere into their Book of Shadows, and that's what they would theoretically be passing down to their children. I don't know that many people have, will be passing stuff down to their generations, because sometimes, like, I don't even know if my girls will really want to have what I have, and what will happen to these writings and all this work. So I'm really kind of looking at it as I'm doing the best that I can to put the information in it that I would, so that it's respectable. Honestly, now that I have a channel, I'm kind of passing it on to you, whoever you may be. And if you're interested, then you look at it. But, my house could burn down and then nobody gets it. Or it could get tossed in the garbage. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have made wonderful books, and you just don't know what's going to happen to it after you're gone, right? So I kind of think about that from time to time. Anyway, so this page here talks about sympathetic magic, where you say, this is that. One object is seen as being another. Thus, the energy is directed into the magical object, is also directed into another object, like a poppet or a sigil or candle burning spells. So there's a little description. And then there's comparative magic. This represents that, which is different. Here it says the relationship established between magical object and other object, usually with the word as in quotation. Thus, energy directed also enters the other. Here, the examples would be charms, connections, and growth spells. Then there's a directive magic, and this is where you would say this affects that. That would be directive magic. So magical energy is raised, focused on a goal, and directed into an object and released for accomplishment, such as candle spells. So like when you blow a candle for a birthday cake, that would be a candle spell of directive magic. Herbal pouches, stones, and crystals. And then because it was so translucent, I wanted to experiment a little bit. And so I ended up making another sheet for the fourth kind of magic that I'm going to put on this side. And I'll do that with you here. And this is called transference magic, where you say this enters that. And it's negative energy. Negative energy is moved into a willing host because it has to be willing because it could die. So i.e., an example is a plant in a hospital room. So you would transfer the sickness into the plant. Or a willing animal or a pet or a familiar. So there seems to be, and I was kind of wondering whether I want to put this in my book, but I will. And then if I want to change my mind later, you can always glue over it or change it, whatever. But what do you think about what I've just read? Because here's the thing. If the negative energy is being moved from a willing host, from one thing and put into a willing host. That is the transference magic. This enters that. It's kind of like you want it to be willing and you want that thing to give an informed consent, right? Because it seems to be kind of respectful of that thing because they could die. The plant could die, the animal could die, or a familiar could die. But then the issue of informed consent, like how informed can a plant be? And how consenting can an animal be? And then she says, the author says, willingness is determined by intuitive communication. So you just sort of intuitively, I don't know, you would infer that the animal or the plant is consenting. So me being as sort of as complex as I am, sometimes I would really kind of massage this. I mean, are there any kind of thoughts about who can be a consenting, sort of a willing participant in transference magic? If you're not leaving your comments on the side here, perhaps you want to think about it and leave your comments down below at a later time. But I just kind of wonder about that because for me, I would want to do a transference magic with something more like a candle because it's almost an inanimate object, but the flame is animated. The flame is alive. And so the flame, I could infer that the flame has informed consent because it chose to be lit as part of this rite, as part of this ritual. And then blowing the candle out would be transferring that. It would be a little different from the candle magic over here, the directive magic, but I would have to think about that. I would have to think about that. So then she goes on to talk about retaining the rules of conduct. Retaining the rules of conduct. Otherwise, if you don't retain the rules of conduct, hello, boss. Hi, Nathan. If you don't retain the rules of conduct, then these four things can happen. One or all of these four things can happen. So she says, you may draw the energy into yourself. You may draw the hostility of the recipient to yourself. Your auric field will be diminished doubly. Now, this is the thing where I kind of changed the wording a little bit, and I'll tell you how. Your auric field will be diminished doubly if the intended recipient forgives you, and triply if the intended recipient does not forgive you, and the magical goal may fail. So that is very wordy, but it's basically saying if you don't respect the rules of conduct, which are basically the ethics, then the nasty magic that you're trying to take out, like the illness that you're taking out of the hospital patient and putting into the plant, then that recipient, i.e. the plant, will redirect that energy to you doubly or triply. Doubly if it doesn't forgive you, and triply if it does forgive you. So it's really a mental kind of exercise, right? About consent and informed consent. I am going to put it into my journal. I am going to sort of glue it in on the intended page. But I am also going to read to you, because the obvious question is, what are the rules of conduct? You have to follow the rules of conduct, or else these 4 things could happen to you. Actually, in her book, Moura says these 4 things will happen to you. I said they could happen to you. So here, the rules of conduct, she has here in the beginning of her book on page 8. And she says, be careful of what you do. That's rule of conduct number 1. Number 2 is be careful who you trust. Rule of conduct number 3 is do not use the power to hurt another. For what is sent comes back. Now that kind of is reminiscent of that rule of 3. You know, what you send out comes back to you 3 times, which I don't agree with. I really don't. I didn't make a good Catholic when I was a Catholic, and I wouldn't make a good Wiccan for similar reasons. And it's reasons like this, because I argue with these rules to live by, because I don't think that you can paint everybody with the same brush. Like, I scribbled out the words, it'll come back to you, and I say, do not use the power to hurt another person, because I want to treat other people the way I want to be treated, and because I treat other people with respect and consideration. Those are the reasons why I don't treat people badly. Not because I think it's going to come back to me, but because it's just the right thing to do, right? So if I treat somebody wrongly, it's because either I didn't know any better, I didn't know what I was doing, I was being a jerk, because that happens, or something like that. But once I actually kind of get it, and I actually hurt somebody's feelings, then I'll go back and address it. So the rules of conduct, I'm going to put in, I have like an ethics section in my journal, and but I'm going to change them because there's just a whole bunch of stuff here that is good, but I need to tweak it. So the other rule of conduct number 4 is never use the power against someone who has power, for you draw from the same well. I don't understand what that means, because first of all, we all have power. We all do. Some of us know how to use it better than others, but never use the power against someone who has power, because we all draw from the same well. What does that mean? That the well's going to run dry one day? I know for a fact that it won't. Energy doesn't get destroyed. It just continues. So I don't understand that number 4. Number 5, she says, to use the power, you must feel it in your heart and know it in your mind. So those are the rules of conduct. Anyway, I'm going to get back to this little bit here, the 7-fold blessing, in just a moment, because I have a few interesting things to say now that I see that some people are starting to come in. How many people do I actually have that? I have that book, just haven't had the time to read much. It's on my summer list to do's. Hey, and you know what, Pepperjack? This is the thing. Besides from beautiful, aren't you sweet? Thanks, Nathan. Hi, Tina. How are you? So just to let you know, whether you stay here for a long time or not, I'm planning on continuing to come back online every week, Eastern Standard Time around 4 o'clock, just to kind of have a chat and do something. So today I'm doing some crafts. If you like that, I will continue to do that. If you want me to do some spell work or some ritual, that's what I would like to do. So I want to kind of do something that is visual and interactive, and also kind of have a chat about some topics, because I really like that. So you're just going to have to let me know, be honest about it, and just let me know what you like in the comments down below or in the comments on the side. I definitely will take a look at it. Okay? So I'm going to do this part here. I'm going to trim this, and then I have a bit of a discussion when I go back to the runes. So what I'm going to ask you all to do as part of participating in this discussion, I'm going to continue working on my runes in a few moments, and as I paint the symbols onto the coins, what I'm going to ask you to do when that time comes, for each symbol, you might write down in the comments something about that rune. And so that just kind of requires for you to actually look at one of your books, like one of these books that you might have, look up a little phrase or two and write it on the side. And that way we can have a reference to go back to. Because by looking stuff up, we never have time to do stuff, right? We just don't. Face it, we don't. We don't take the time to do stuff. And we have like 50 books on our shelves that are not read. And yet, instead of taking the time to sit there and read the books, what we want to do, honestly, is to go on YouTube and be part of live chats and to talk, and we want to paint, and we want to do stuff that we don't have to do. That's what we want to do. So what I'm proposing is that when we come here, and that's part of the educator in me, what we do when we come here is you might look up a couple of things, and that way, when you walk away, you might learn a thing or two about runes. And if you don't like things about runes, then you just might want to look up something next week with me, because we'll probably be doing something informative every week, right? Because whether you realize it or not, I just talked to you about 4 different kinds of magic. And so you learned something there too if you didn't know it. And if you did know it, then we reviewed it together. So, ta-da! I snuck that in. We learned something. Yay! So what I'm doing right now is I'm painting the glue onto the central part of this page. I'm just sticking that on, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to put this down here so I can show you what I'm doing. There we go. Then I'm taking this paintbrush with a dry end so it doesn't mess up everything. Starting from the center, and I'm rolling it out. And now I got goo and glue all over the place here. So wipe that off because we don't want messes. And then you start from the middle and you roll out. Ta-da! And there you go. That's kind of almost not the finished product, but that's kind of how it looks. Now, what I've learned, see this dry brush? What I've learned is to kind of do the middle with the dry brush so that I can still see the writing. However, I'm going to do the edges. Here we go. Do the edges with a little bit of water and glue and a little bit of water so that they stay down. The water just puts it down and then the glue keeps it there. So instead of having to hold it, the water is enough weight to just kind of keep it in place. And it makes the glue soluble enough to kind of spread. But if I were to do this to everything, you see here how on the edges the color starts to show through? It would be hard to read everything if I did that everywhere. So I'm just going to leave the air bubbles where they are. The page is not going to go anywhere. It's glued in place. It's legible. And voila. You know, later on I'll come back and I'll do other things to the page, like I will layer other stuff on, like flowers or whatever I'm inspired to do. So this is the one we just did previous to this. It's kind of curling. See how it's curling? But that's okay because I'll flatten it out later. And this is the way that that's looking. Okay, so now we've done three sheets of like 3 different pages in my journal, which is kind of nice. Oh, actually, we did 4. No, this one was already done. This one was already done, so that one's not a fourth one, but I mentioned 4 of them. Okay, now we're going to go back to the runes. And these are the runes that I'm working on. Are you still with me, people? Because I still have some discussion. Hi, everyone. Almost like Mod Podge. Yeah, it is kind of like Mod Podge. Exactly. So, you're going to have to take a look at my face, I guess. My mug. So, I prepared a couple of things to ask you about, to talk to you about, because I'd like to have a bit of a discussion, some input on stuff, and it may or may not interest you. I don't know. But as we're going through this, see, I painted one side gold just a little earlier, and the other side is the old brown, the chocolate brown that I didn't like. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the brown side and ask you to participate in some kind of discussion. So I want to ask you, this is the thing. I've been noticing over years that in paganism, we talk about paganism, we talk about Wicca, we talk about witchcraft and Christianity. And for me, what I'm most familiar with in Christianity is Catholicism, because I grew up as Catholic. And are you with me so far? Do you want to talk about this? Anybody? So what I've noticed is there's a lot of similarities, and this is going to be like glaringly obvious, but there's a lot of similarities between paganism and Catholicism. Now, I don't know other areas of Christianity because I haven't been to other Christian masses very much. I've been to some like United Churches and other kinds of stuff, but I know that Catholic Mass has the whole ritual in the front, where you have the body and the blood and all this sort of stuff, right? Which is bread and wine. But they also have all this other stuff, like the statues. And then you have the Stations of the Cross. Now, I don't know if you know about the Stations of the Cross, but during the Passion, what they call the Passion of the Christ, there's like all these different like main events from the time that he got like condemned to the time where he died and got removed from the tomb. There's like a number of different steps. I think it's like 16 or 13 or anyways, there's a number of steps where you do the Stations of the Cross at a certain time in the year. And so there's that, and there's also like holy water. There's the different times of the year that really are similar to Sabbaths. Like there's a bunch of different stuff that I see in Catholic Church that are so similar to paganism. And like looking at Mother Mary and looking at like all the things that I just mentioned, like the holy water and the libation, like the communion and all this eating the blood and all this sort of stuff, there's very similar stuff to paganism, like these practices. Holy water is not in the Bible at all. It is a pagan practice. So my point is that part of why I felt so deceived in my early 20s by the whole practice of Catholicism was because I was always taught, first of all, there's only one God. It's a monotheistic religion, and yet all these other people say that we believe in many gods because we have statues and saints and all these things. And no, there's just one God. These are people that are helpers to God, and we can pray to them. And but that's called rationalization. You know, later on in life, when I found out about psychology and I studied psychology, I went, no wonder that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because it's rationalization. So when you look at other religions, which as a Catholic, I was supposed to just say, no, you're not supposed to look at other religions because you're not supposed to, kind of like entertain all of these others' belief systems and stuff. You're supposed to just kind of stick with here. And what I know from a scientific perspective is like, no, like explore every book. How damaging can it be to read a book of Satan, a book of witchcraft, and a book of comic books, and a book of Harry Potter, and a book of how to sew a curtain, or just read everything and then form opinions about it later, right? It shouldn't be bad to kind of inform yourself about the way other people do stuff. And really, if we have free choice, then you should be able to know about everything and make up your mind yourself, right? But that's not what I was taught as a Catholic. And what I'm finding, like these past decades, is that, oh my goodness, all these things that were Catholic are really pagan. What they are pagan. Like the 4 points on the Christmas wreath. There's 4 candles. First of all, candle magic is totally pagan. So we have 4 candles on the Christmas wreath, using colors to symbolize things, using different kind of the T for the cross, the Tau, T-A-U, Tau. That was a god. That was a god of evil. But there's so many things that got amalgamated with Christianity at one time, so that the pagans would come in and make their numbers bigger and make the Christians stronger. And I'm finding now, historically speaking, when you're looking at people talking on YouTube, is that there's more of a separation between the pagans and the Christians. There's more of a, historically, this is like a movement that is kind of dissolving the pagans from the Christians. And there's still very much a union. I find I'm pretty alone in thinking that growing up Catholic, I started very young being a pagan because I was Catholic. And no other Catholic will agree with that, I don't think. Not many Catholics will agree with that unless they've kind of separated themselves from Catholicism, because it's all pagan practice. When I read, where'd my book go? When I read any book on Wicca, any book on witchcraft, I'll tell you how what I came across this week. I'll finish the sentence. When I read about any book on witchcraft or Wicca, it's very reminiscent of Catholicism. So how can I cut myself off completely of Catholicism and say, I don't believe any of the things that are Catholic, and grumble about Catholicism? It's all bad because now I'm on this better path of paganism. To me, it feels disingenuous. It feels like, disingenuous, I think is the word. It feels dishonest. It feels like I am ignoring a part of my formation, of my past, and a part of what is likely my belief system, because so much Catholicism is steeped in paganism. Even if Catholics or the priests or the monsignors or whatever, they wouldn't say that it's pagan, it absolutely is. Because historically speaking, these practices, these rituals, came before Christianity. They're pre-Christian. The whole thing about, the directions and the Sabbats and the colors and all that stuff is completely pre-Christian. So who came first, right? So you agree, Pepper Jackie? Am I a witch? I would like to know. That is a word I just don't know. Am I a witch? And it's mostly the reason why I have a hard time answering that question. There's a lot of reasons why I have a hard time answering that question. First of all, I have a problem with labels. It's kind of like a diagnosis, right? Like, okay. The other thing is that there's the Hollywood version of what a witch is. So if I'm going to give myself a label, am I telling you, another person, am I telling you that I am a witch, not understanding what you know about a witch? You may have some preconceived notions about what a witch is. And do I really want to sit down and start re-educating you as to who I am when you already have like plenty of other sources telling you what a witch is, right? Do I really want to have that argument? It's like it takes energy for me to kind of explain what a witch is and what a witch isn't. And actually recently, Jess from BC, her channel, oh God, why am I blanking on her channel? It'll come to me. Anyways, when I think of it, I'm going to put a link down below. She recently had a very intelligent discussion. Like, I don't know, the discussion is more than one person. She presented like a long sort of monologue on the witches and witch trials, and how we really don't have much to do with the witches of the witch trial. Basically, it was a cleansing. It was a social cleansing. This light is too bright. Okay. it was a social cleansing. If you didn't like somebody, you would kind of point the finger to them, and it was for them to kind of, you're guilty until proven innocent, and then you can't really be proven innocent because, you know, by virtue of being accused of being a witch, you can't disprove that you're not a witch. Because if you survive the drowning, then you then Satan helped you live, and so therefore you must die because you're a witch, and so you get burned at the stake. So damn if you do and damn if you don't. That's exactly it. What is your wand and broomstick? Wow, that's another question. I say I'm a spiritualist. That is actually a thing. That is actually a thing. There's spiritualist churches, and spiritualists are a group of people who define themselves as being mediums and practicing mediumship and being able to speak to and connect with and hear messages from people who have died. So to say that you're a spiritualist, there's a belief system that goes around that. I'm from Ontario, so I know that there's like a spiritualist society. If you look it up on the internet, there's like a spiritualist society of Barrie and of Canada, and of, I think the one in Barrie is the main location for all of Canada. Anyway, so if you look up the word spiritualist, they practice mediumship. So, and then there's also spiritist, and that means something else. Am I spiritual? Yes, I am spiritual. Am I a witch? Gosh, there's a whole bunch of books that have come out recently. The one that's called Witch, the other one that's called Witch, Unapologetic, Untamed, you know, that other one. I'd really like to get to those books because the reviews sound really awesome. You know, being able to reclaim your term as a witch. But again, it seems like having to re-educate the entire world on this term that already has, that's already fraught with meaning. Do I practice witchcraft? Absolutely. And I always have since I was a kid. And I think many people do in very simple ways. Like, you know, when you take a penny and you toss it over your shoulder in the fountain, that's a spell. Some people would, Pepper Jackie, make me a mod. Okay. Why are we having some problems? Let me just see here. I'm unaware of some problems because I'm just babbling. Pepper Jackie, come here, you. Add moderator. Okay. Thank you, Pepper Jackie. Tina, yes, exclamation. Good, okay. I've heard about those churches, but I've never seen one. There's actually, you mean like this, the mediumship? Spiritualist. If you go on YouTube, there's actually, I don't know what you have to type. I guess you'd have to say like spiritualist session or something, but there's like a group of people that get together and there's YouTube videos and you can see them. There's like training. And the closest one here is kind of far for me to drive, given that it's like on a Sunday night and it would take me hours to drive there and hours to drive back. And I would be, like, it just doesn't work with going to work on Monday morning for me. I would really like to go for that training, for that. Like I would, if there was something closer, I definitely would, I would want that training. All I can do is read all the books on mediumship and then fly by the seat of my pants along with everything else. That's what I do. I cannot stand it. I can't stand when it will not let me type right. Oh, okay. You mean like, yeah, I got you. Like, what do you call it? Autocorrect or whatever? Yeah. I wish a red light would turn green. Thanks, Butterfly, so I can troll hunt for you. Oh, okay. Message deleted by, why was there a troll? Thanks, Butterfly. Flaming. Was flaming a troll? What's your wand and broomstick? That sounds like a good question. Flaming? That doesn't sound like a bad question. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Because I didn't see the view the deleted message. Did I agree God is an alien? Oh, I think that's an okay question. I don't mind that one. Can you put that one back? I don't know how you put that one back. But Pepper, if you can put that one back, I don't mind that question. Do I think God is an alien? I don't know. I know that there's a lot of intelligent people, like government. I mean, I'm crafting today. That's what I'm doing. But just off the top of my head, I know that there's a lot of research being done on aliens, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff. I'm not really concerned about it. I'm still trying to decide whether to spell God with a capital G or a small g, and whether I even care. Oh, he is a troll? Okay. Yeah, but I think, well, maybe he's asking it because he thinks that that's a silly question, but I don't mind the question, if God is an alien. I think that's, I mean, there's a lot of really intelligent people who can have really great conversations like that. In fact, without having to get into it, I will refer you to a channel, and you can look up concepts like that and find out why I'm saying that it's an intelligent question. He may have some other questions that are really not intelligent. I don't know. I'm not really kind of paying attention to what he's saying. But if you look at a channel by Jeffrey Mishlove, Jeffrey, and Mishlove, Mishlove, and his channel is New Thinking Aloud. And that channel is absolutely fantastic. He is a psychologist. He says he's the only psychologist who's been on his graduate paper, like on his PhD sheet, it says parapsychologist. Most people who are psychologists will call themselves parapsychology because they're a psychologist on their paper and study parapsychology, but he's the only one who actually has a page that when he graduated, he studied parapsychology from the very beginning. It's a bit of a pioneer, that one. And his whole channel is all about interviews. He interviews people who have written at least one book, if not many, and who are pioneers in their own right. So I highly recommend that channel. And he will talk about like controlled remote viewing. He will talk about aliens. He will talk about God. He will talk about every possible religion, like Buddhism and aliens and mediumship. So once you go through a number of his videos, you can't watch one of his videos and not be enlightened. So two negatives. You will be enlightened by any one of his videos. And then reflect back to why I would say that his question is really, I could entertain that. I put it back, I think, bless my patience. Okay, well, I'll have to read his other questions too to really know, but I will trust your judgment for right now because, so who is this? When I saw CCTV cams, I thought God also was similar technology to watch all of us, which is beyond human technology. Okay. All of us. Okay, so God's watching us kind of thing? I'm not sure. Maybe I missed some of your previous comments. So maybe if you can, just so that I can stay on track, Pepper, maybe the other three hidden messages, maybe unhide them just so I can just take a peek, because, I mean, I would say that it's possible that Fleming is not a troll. I'm not sure. I don't really know. I don't think that person is, he or she. Anyway, I appreciate your assistance, though. And it's kind of hard too sometimes to kind of decide whether something is offensive or not. I guess I spent a lot of time in my youth kind of being harmed by people who didn't have my best interests at heart, that I learned to feel very, for lack of a better word, paranoid. But my word of preference would be hyper vigilant about people's sort of intentions. And I've just kind of learned over the years that even if they want to be harmful in the comments that they do, it's always my choice as to whether I decide to be offended or not. So, meh, that kind of, that NEH, I like that. I like that word. It kind of sums up a lot of, my response to some things. Okay, so, that was not me on him. No messages there, love. I kept hitting the wrong button. So I'm seeing everything. Okay, maybe Okay, I don't know. Anyways, point being, Fleming, if you're around and you don't see your question wherever it is supposed to be, just ask it again and I'll figure it out. Because I'm pretty relaxed about, you know, stuff. I mean, people who come out, I had one person, and I think it was really the only troll that I've ever experienced so far. And it was somebody who came on while I was on a live once upon a time. And he was coming on saying that he was Mike Pence, and he was saying blatantly racist comments. I mean, that was like unmistakable. But that happened once. And it was very quickly dealt with. And other than that, like I've been pretty lucky on my channel, you know, like nobody really kind of has been bothering me, and I've been here since June, and we're at the middle of March. So I'm quite liking it. So what was I talking about? Christianity and paganism. Yeah, this is a thing. Here, let me wipe my fingers on something. This is a thing that I came up with. I found this week. And I hadn't put 2 and 2 together before. Please don't lose my place. I put, really, like I put there. See? I put this here. This is something I came across, and I just put 2 and 2 together this week because every so often there's like another little piece of the puzzle that comes up. There's a place in Catholic Mass. There's a part where you're standing up and they're about to read the 3rd reading. Every week you have like 3 readings, right? So it's from the New Testament, and it's usually Jesus speaks, you know, kind of thing. And right before that, you do a little, because everything is a cross, like a T, as in Tau. That's where that cross comes from. But you do that little symbol on your forehead so that your thoughts, you know, that you are mindful of your thoughts, that you are mindful of your speech, and you are mindful of your feelings. So you go like this on your mouth, and like this on your mouth. And it's something that's actually not even written in the book. As you follow the book, you wouldn't even see that it's there because it's not there. It's just something that you know to do at that point in the Mass. Well, I found it. I found it here. I didn't find it with what you're supposed to say as a Christian. I found it as the physical practice as a pagan. It's called the 7-fold blessing, and it's called the 5-fold blessing. So in the Catholic Church, what it would be is the 3-fold blessing, and 3 being a very significant number in the numerology of Catholicism. So it says here, you may anoint in a sigil each area with oil or blessed water during the recitation. So basically what it is a sigil. The T would be the sigil. But here they're suggesting that you put like the pentacle or some sigil that is important to you. So I call upon the blessings of the goddess and the god upon me, which is what you would say with a Catholic translation. Blessed be my feet that bring me on my path. Blessed be my knees that support me before the Lady and the Lord. Blessed is my sexuality. So you're going through different points of your body. You're going through your feet, your knees, your sexuality, your heart, your lips, your eyes, your eyes, and your mind. So the last 3, these 3, your heart, your lips, and your eyes, or your mind, that is basically the same thing, where you put the sigil on your feet, you put the sigil on your knees, you put the sigil around your sexuality, around your heart, around your lips, around your eyes, and on your mind, for the same reasons as you would in the Catholic Mass. You say, blessed be my sexuality that honors life, because that is the area of creation of life. Blessed be my heart that holds me true to my path. Blessed be my lips that speak the sacred names. Blessed be my eyes that see the beauty of nature. Blessed be my mind that seeks the wisdom and knowledge of the goddess and the god. So it's really reminiscent one of the other, right? So what we were doing in Catholic Mass, this, and the heart, with the words that you're supposed to be saying in honor of the monotheistic God, it's very reminiscent of what was being done in pagan circles. It's just that you don't do the feet and the sexuality and the knees and that sort of thing. You're just doing a 3, a number 3, and those are the 3 that they chose. So as I go through a lot of I'll put this down, like the chakras, that's exactly what I was thinking about, right? Only with the chakras, your root chakra would take care of your sexuality, and everything below, like your knees and your feet, right, goes out through your feet. But yes, because then you go through, it misses the solar plexus. That one doesn't do the solar plexus, but it goes through the heart. It misses the throat, but it has voice. So that would be speaking and communication. So there's kind of like a connection there. Your eyes would be more of your third eye, as opposed to your eyes, and your crown chakra would be your mind. So I see what you're talking about. It made me think of chakras, but it's not exactly the same. But yes, yeah, the 7 areas are a little bit different. Anyway, I'm really enjoying. I mean, when your hobby is studying, I don't know how a larger group of people can say pagans don't know anything, and they're still in like medieval times and the false god and all this sort of thing. And I just don't get it, because if there's anything that I do know is that people in this pagan community, the average person is a voracious reader, an avid reader. And the only reason why we have so many books on our shelves that haven't been read is because we're busy reading other ones, or learning from other people who are putting that information out on their channels if we're busy watching YouTube. So, yeah, I do see, historically speaking, I do see that right now it's kind of like some modern day renaissance in spiritualism and spiritual beliefs. And I really do like that collectively people are learning to speak and say, I deserve to be respected, even though I am different from what you believe. That there's like the mainstream sort of belief systems aren't necessarily expected to be the only thing and the all-powerful. I'm having a controversy with our Christianity. Can you clarify? Oh, like you want to ask me a question? I don't know, but go ahead and ask the question, and we'll see if we can, what we can come up with. I may come up with an answer, but you know what the thing is? Maybe if somebody else here can sort of address it, and maybe somebody who's watching it in the future can maybe address it, your question down below. So shoot, ask away. Time for a little bit more tea. And then very soon, I think I should tie up, because we've been here for a little bit. We've been here for a little bit, so I was actually going to have a bit of an activity here and paint each rune, like paint each symbol as you sort of look up the meaning of each one, and then this video would be like a reference for people or an exercise in learning. But I don't know if we're going to have the energy or the time to do that, because we'll see. So Fleming, go ahead. I don't know if you're going to ask your question, but you're more than welcome to ask your question if you're still here. Who knows? Maybe I'm the only one who's still here. No, actually, I still see a bunch of people still here. The number is still up. Is there anything else? Does anybody else have any questions? Things you want to talk about? Upcoming Ostara. Does anybody have any sort of celebration, ritual, practice, something that you want to share? You're here. I'm so glad. Thank you, Pepper. So, yeah, I think my take-home messages for today are: focus on some ritual while I'm cleaning, so that I can make it a little bit more pleasant. Because I like ritual. Well, I like some ritual. I like simple ritual that doesn't really demand a whole lot of preparation. Something that's like spray bottle, essential oil, burn a candle, burn some incense, smudge with a feather, something simple like that. I like. Does anybody here have any, is anybody here a Wiccan? Because I'll tell you, for the same reasons that I don't think, I mean, I was always arguing mentally with Catholicism as I was growing up, because of the incongruencies. And I think innately, even as a very, very, very young person, I would argue with those things because they didn't make sense. And lo and behold, they still don't make sense to me as an adult. So I think I started very young questioning pertinent things that actually mattered. And for a similar reason, I don't think I would ever be able to call myself a Wiccan, because of similar things. I mean, do I agree with the rule of three? No. Do I agree that you should harm none? Yes. But the logic of the reasoning why? No. So for those simple reasons, and also the belief in a Lord and a Lady, the jury's still out on that. I don't know. I mean, I appreciate energy systems. So if the God, the spirit, the all that is an energy system, if we are part of that energy system, then yeah, I think that there's something. Whether I pray to Mother Mary or to a saint or to Inanna or Ishtar or any of the gods or goddesses, I think that those are ways of expression. Those are like components of a whole. That's what I think. They're all components of a whole. And it all kind of channels, it all kind of funnels through to the same source, whatever that source may be. That's a vague description of a very vague thought that I have. Okay, so Jesus told not to worship him, but we worship. Why? I don't know. I think there's probably an interpretation of what worshiping means. Different people worship in different ways. So I think really what has to happen is you have to find out what makes sense to you. That's number one, and go with it. Honor what makes sense to you. And the other thing is you have to understand that you are on a path of learning. No matter where you are in your life, no matter who has taught you whatever belief systems you're familiar with, you are on a path of learning. And what you know today may be different from what you know in 5 years or in 10 years or in 20 years. And it may be different from what you knew 10 years ago. And for that very reason, you need to respect what other people are learning and respect where they are on their path, because they may know better than you, they may know less than you, but nobody really has any business kind of pointing and shaming anybody, because the brilliance about it all is that you can't prove a lot of it. The brilliance of it is that because you can't prove any one of these things, you're expected to respect the beliefs of other people, right? Because any book that has been written has only been written by man, perhaps inspired by God, but it's still written by man. So it's still filtered through human understanding. So if there's a God, an energy source that says, this is the message that I want you to write down in the book, and humans understand that message and say, I was told a message, this is what the message is, you're still filtering it through your understanding as a human, so you may be kind of limited in your human understanding. So whatever book is written, whether it's the Bible, whether it is Quran, or any kind of religious text, basically, or the Torah, or any kind of religious text, it's still filtered through, written by man and the understanding of man. So maybe something got lost in translation. So no matter where you are, basically, whatever you've learned, you still have to appreciate that other people are not expected to be just like you, and it's okay for them to be different. So worship why? Okay, so I know we seeking help from Father through Jesus. Okay, I like simple rituals too. Oh, this is Tina. Not the long, drawn-out ones. I do abide by the wicked reed. That's good. It's good to know what you need to do, right? It's good to be true to what feels right to you. A lot of these things with religion is basically They're guidelines. They're rules about how to interact with your fellow people. So I think we have to keep that in mind, because when people say, if these people don't follow the word of this God or this religious rule system, therefore we need to kill that person, put that person to death in the name of God. I just think that is the most uninformed decision, inappropriate behavior. It's criminal. It's wrong, because if God is almighty in that belief system, if God is almighty, who are you to have to smite somebody else? Because God can do it himself. If you're looking at a monotheistic thought process, he's capable of earthquakes. He's capable of creating you. He's capable of creating that person and putting that person on that path. Don't think that the world centers around you and that you are personally being tested to see if you can kill somebody else in the name of God. Because, I don't know, one of the first things is, don't kill people. Thou shalt not murder, like that's, it just doesn't make sense. That rule system doesn't make sense. It's justifying bad behavior. Sometimes we call Jesus as God. Yeah, well, and it depends on your belief system. Sometimes we do call Jesus God. Some people even think about God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit as being a Holy Trinity, and they're all one and the same. They're all male figures as well, and that proposes a lot of issues with regard to spirituality. So, explore, read several books. You need to kind of explore those sort of concepts. And your what's your name there again? Let me scroll up. I don't want to get it wrong. Fleming. You're on a good path. I remember when I was asking those very same questions. I remember not too long ago, a couple decades ago, I was, I was asking those very same questions. I was struggling with the whole thing of, Jesus being in a piece of bread. How does that make sense? How does that make sense? And what I came to understand is that when you're eating at the communion, you're eating in community with other people, and there's rationalizations, there's thoughts, there's beliefs around that. So you have to wrap your brain around that belief system and make it make sense to you. And if it doesn't make sense to you, the beauty is that there are other belief systems who may, if you get out of that shell and you explore, you might find something that fits you better. So you've come to the right place. I think every god and goddess is a facet of Akasha. That is quite possible. Jesus is the Son, so that is why the confusion calling Jesus God. Same family in a way. Yeah, but there's that. But there's also the whole thing about, Mary being a virgin. And when Mary is a virgin, me and Mary, boy, I tell you, Mary and I, we go back a long way. We have a long relationship. I don't know that she can really relate to me if she's a virgin. If she produces a child, frankly, I'll tell you. Historically speaking, at that time and at many times in history, there were virgin births. She's not the only virgin birth. When you have a system that says you can only have a child within the rule system, like within marriage, or else you get taken to the city limits and you get stoned to death because you're a whore, and you're not taught, assertiveness training like we are in 2019, then you're cannon fodder, basically. So if you're pregnant at 12 or 14 or 16 years old, I can see a lot of virgin births happening. And that's what I think. I mean, there's a lot. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I think that it's possible that he's not the son of God, that he's the son of a physical man, and that there was a lot of rationalization. But, who knows what I'll think tomorrow, so don't burn me today. Jesus said, no man comes to the Father except through him. Well, I don't know if he said that. I know it was probably written somewhere. But then that would mean that a person actually wrote that down. And people who wrote things were the people who were scholars of the year of those times. And education was not as prevalent as it is today, 2,000 years ago. And so scholars were the people who were maintaining control. And so to control people, you might decide to write things. I mean, when were those words written? Some people who were actually written, I think 2 of the 4 evangelists didn't even live at the time of Jesus. I don't remember exactly, but 2 of them had the same name as apostles, but they weren't apostles. They weren't like living at the time of Jesus. They wrote their stories, but they wrote the stories because they had read the stories of before and they had wrote their version of the story. So the 4 evangelists, I think only 2 of them actually lived with Jesus and wrote things down. And even if it was their writing, sometimes those writings get retranslated over time. So when you're reading something, you really don't know if it's kind of authentic, like really. And that's kind of like the thing where you say, oh, well, then you just have to have faith. And that's what I was told very much when I was a kid, is that, you have to have faith. You just have to, believe which sounds fine. But when it's like, okay, I remember having a conversation with God and saying, you gave me this brain that asks questions. You gave me this IQ. You gave me the ability and the intelligence to question things. So why then am I being told not to question things? That didn't make sense to me. And I had a lot of struggle with coming to terms with those sort of concepts. So I hear all the things that are being said, and I understand them and I appreciate them. And I think that a lot of the things that are said with regard to Christianity are opinions by people who've lived a long time ago. If I put pen to paper and I wrote something and it stayed, I don't know that it would have the same impact as the people who wrote these things 2,000 years ago. Why? Because everybody and his dog has an education today. And everybody, how many people are writing books today? These are the books that were written back then, and it took a number of people to write a little bit each, and it all these years, got all these documents put together, and then if it didn't fit in the belief system of controlling people in such and such a way, and segregating all the, the polytheists and the pagans and stuff, if we didn't shame people into controlling them and saying, if you don't believe in the one God, and this is the way that you have to do things, if we didn't put the fear of God and that they would, burn forever in hell, if we didn't control people in that way, if this book was not effective in getting that as a result, which is social control, then we haven't done our job. Because we are the people who know better, because we are the people with an education. We can write books, and we are the people in authority. So I think there was a lot of that at that point in history. But it still controls people today. And in some ways, it's good if you use that information and you use it to be kind to people, But when we use that kind of information to shame other people, or to kill other people, or to segregate other people, or to say you're not good enough because you don't believe the same things as I believe, and I think we're really doing humanity a disservice. And I don't think that any celestial being who is all-knowing and all-loving would promote hate-mongering and segregation. I just don't. Okay, I might have missed a few things. Jesus said, no man comes here. Okay, Tina's still part of the same family. Yeah, I agree with you, Butterfly. Right, was typing to help Fleming understand. Okay, good. All right. Amen, Butterfly. Oh, good. I said something good. Hearts, and love that explanation. Exactly. In Christianity, that's blasphemy to question. Exactly. To question authority is to be blasphemous. If you question authority and say, that doesn't make sense. Explain that to me better. Basically, you are willing and open to learning as long as it makes sense. And then when you are cut off and shamed, which I got a lot in my youth, from religion, from upbringing, because previous generations, that's just how they interacted with the younger generation. Children are meant to be seen and not heard, that sort of thing. Also because, bringing people up, like, how we, bring each other up in channels, like we talk to each other in a very positive way. That wasn't the way back then. You had to kind of scrape like a crab in a bucket of water trying to fit in, and you never would, because there's always somebody to kind of kick you back down. That's the way it used to be. RC Christian from India. Okay, right. I can relate to that. So, and in India, I've not been there. I have only a vague understanding, but religion is very important in India. And that is one place where, from my understanding, whether you are Hindu, whether you are Christian, which are the two most prevalent, I think, or if you're something else, there's possibly Sikh, but I think that's more prevalent in Pakistan. It's respected. You have your own. There's another one. Vishnu. What is it? Buddhism. Anyways, religion is very respected there. You have something that's a different religion from mine, that's fine. It's maybe I shouldn't say that, actually, because I'm thinking of some other things as well. So, but anyways, I understand you are RC Christian you're Roman Catholic, and the thing is that that's not likely to change. That's what I'm trying to say. Once you start and you're brought up in that one sort of belief system, you're not likely to change. Sometimes priests call Jesus as messenger. I think Jesus was a prophet. Even Jewish will say, the Jews will say that Jesus was a prophet. He's not the Messiah. They're still waiting for the Messiah, but they say that he was a prophet. So there's a level of respect that's given there. Frankly, I think as a Catholic, honestly, I think because Jesus was a Jew, I honestly feel cheated, because when I was a Catholic, or am I still a Catholic? I don't know. I don't do labels. I don't understand labels very well. I really don't know who I am like that way. All I know is that I'm a student of life, and I'm very curious, and I want to know everything. But anyways, when I was, years ago, I think that Catholics should know more about Judaism, that the Jewish religion should be taught like in church and in Catholic schools, because if Jesus is a Jew, then it just makes sense that you can't be a Christian without being a Jew. But I'm very alone in thinking that. I think that the Jewish religion should be part of Christianity, just for the simple fact that Jesus was a Jew. But who knows? Maybe I'll get a lot of hate mail about that. I don't know. Sometimes the priest called Jesus a messenger of God. Sometimes he called him Jesus as God. Well, and one priest doesn't make all of the opinions, right? I mean, our friends from India, one is Sikh, another Hindu. Hindus, yes, Hindu, another an atheist. Yeah. Yeah. So, my lovelies, I've been on for about 2 hours, just chatting about all kinds of stuff. This was really interesting. I think there's always room for more discussion. But why don't we keep it for next week? We'll have another live discussion at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what I'm going to plan. I might plan to do some more art, because as I'm doing art, I tend to just kind of talk, and it gives me something to do when there's nobody kind of listening. So maybe you'd like to see that. I might do a spell. I don't know what I'll do. I'll do something. If you have any ideas, leave them in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you'd like to see. Okay, but I'm gonna let you go. Do I have friends of other religions? Oh God, I have friends of I have everybody, honey. Whatever. It's all good. Yeah, native spirituality, pagan, Wicca, witchcraft, lots of Catholics in this area. Some people call themselves recovering Catholics, Christian, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Baptist, all that. So, okay, I'm glad you love my book. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. And definitely, we'll be here next week. Okay? Take care. Am I on Instagram? No, I don't. I don't have a cell phone, and then my understanding is that you need a cell phone for Instagram. I don't text. Oh, wait. Okay. Most of them are Muslim and Hindus. Yeah, there's Muslim as well. Yeah. I really like Buddhism and Hinduism. I know very little about those things, but from what I know, I like it. I like the whole thing of connecting with something higher than yourself. I like a little bit about the honoring yourself and respecting other people. I love the chakras, looking at energy systems, because for me, I look at it from a very psychological standpoint, where each chakra talks to me as a human. It's like for me, chakras is very much like tarot, where each one kind of represents a different stage in the human experience, a different aspect of it. So I look at those things as very introspective sort of tools for me. Of Buddha, yeah, of Buddha for sure. Not Vishnu. There was a celebration. Yeah, there was a celebration. Maybe it's Hinduism that's Vishnu. It was a celebration just with. I really like listening to Siddhartha. I'm glad you're clarifying before we leave. Sadhguru. Sadhguru is who I'm talking about. Maybe I'll try and listen to this video again and put a link to him down below. But you will see Sadhguru. Sad is S-A-H-D, I believe, G-U-R-U, all one word, Sadhguru. He's a very wise guru, and I could just listen to him talk. He simplifies everything so much. People ask him questions. He will talk to an auditorium of like thousands of people, and they will come and say, thank you for being here, Sadhguru. I'm coming to ask you a question. They will ask a question. They will bring an argument. They will bring an honest question, and he will just simplify it so much. That is wisdom. That is inspired. That is inspired by God, as far as I'm concerned. God, by whatever name you want to call God. And he's not the only guru who's that intelligent and that well spoken, but he's the one I listen to the most, Sadhguru. And how that connects to your Vishnu. Most of them hate Sadhguru. Oh, well, not me. And a couple of weeks ago, there was the celebration of, I believe it was Vishnu, the female sort of, you see on the video, the big female sort of, I think it was a Vishnu head. And they had a big celebration, the stage, and people came and they played music. And then Sadhguru at some point came on and he spoke. And then he was dancing. And I think it was a celebration for Vishnu. Google about him. Well, thing is, Sivivakti, well, I recognize that word, but I don't, I recognize those words, but I don't know. I'm not of that language, so I don't know what it is. I know that they were saying har. They were celebrating har something. And maybe you can tell me what the word was. But it was a big celebration. And it was like I guess they were celebrating Vishnu. But when you're saying to me, Google about him so that I can find out how much people hate him, that kind of a comment doesn't appeal to me, because I've already made my decision that I like Sadhguru. I've already made my decision that what he has to say speaks to me. And I would like for my decision to like that person to be respected. So I trust that there's a lot of people who probably don't like him, and there's what I've seen is a lot of people who do like him. And when you're a public figure, I anticipate that will hold true. No matter who you are in the public figure, if everybody liked you, without question, then then there's something wrong. And my throat is acting up. Yeah, when everybody is shown to like one person, it doesn't make sense. So this past are too bad. Once upon, he was jailed for selling weed. And I'm Canadian, and weed has been made legal. It's not something I do, but I mean, if he was jailed for something, then he has done his time. He has done his penance. He's paid his dues to society as determined by the authority figures. And what he is producing behaviorally now is something that I appreciate. Yeah. Okay. So we will talk about this again, or we'll talk about something next week. Put your comments down below. I really appreciate you for having to come and visit with me. Enjoy your evening. Take care.